Are you kidding me? So, subject applied. Months worth of a lace of animations, which, by all in this regard, would make so much sense. Creditional, rewarding, such what if, and what such of. No one thought I've, but no other matter, for as they just go straight on the fact, screwing everyone up, rushed in a month, only for a minute's worth of just silence. Bragged upon, saying 2,000 animators, and yet all of immediate sense, just optionally, but yet profusely says, yes, let's do sex as the highest vote without anyone knowing who they even are, and they force upon them to vote these without consensuals of why they didn't let us choose it. I mean, wouldn't it matter of all the choosing of stack? Which makes sense. Everything has a desire of at least of one worth to choose whether or not they would choose it, because there's 2,000. Well, it doesn't matter, because some people have some value. Some people actually would recognize that by at least of the mid-20 will be chosen. But yet they also too limited those who are over the sex limit, which does not make any sense. And then once these votings are seemingly being pressed upon in 2 days, that everyone can't really vote because it's in the watch panel, which FlippyClick's basic glitch, saying that this update was never fertile, and whenever somebody, including me, would use the watch tab, it glitches out, it kicks you out, and the only way to at least watch something that they recommend to you on shorts is to actually search up the actual animator. Only till then you actually know who they are. It would be at the grass that they could just recommend you who the even animator is, so that way they don't force upon you onto FlippyClip just for that in recognition, in reason. At least they were credited, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, as I said, they used the voting on there, and who actually knows of who actually voted out the results? Everyone doesn't even know, because most of them, all throughout the comments, even claimed they can't vote. No one can. It's glitched. They need to make a new update to sustain that. But I digress on that type of function because I ain't the one who made the app. So, with this, I have a desire for the release of doing the vote, but it will feel like it was really hurtful because how rushed, how fake, how really prudent it to me is. And what's even more confusing of all, which everyone is somewhat not really taking it much of at least a highlight of this, but I would expect a stream where everyone reacts, everyone comments, and congratulations one another who the real results are. Nope, turns out they just post everyone's animations and results in a vid, only to declare, okay, you're done, okay, goodbye. That's it. Where's the hype? Where's the attention? All of those last streams of results meant nothing. And that means I meant nothing. Every single time whenever I was part of the competition, the only thing I was credited for is at least the whips and somewhere in the other, these suppressities where I'll be hinted to this. And everyone doesn't know me, and I don't care if I would reward, but I mostly feel disgusted of how very bland this supposed pride about everyone claiming, oh, I can reveal my OC to the public, everyone can see it. I would be known one day, and I'll be one of the tops of being popular, and I'll broadcast my OC, and I want to make them have the pride joy by using FlippyClip, the animation company as we all know it, who would all use to at least give the children a free will to animate just like the legendary gods, Sacred Choir, animated gods, or even those of the indie animations. Nope. Rather than that, you'll just be skulled in the dirt, wasting nights. People lamenting, staying up, tired, no matter young or old. I'm old. And I have a responsible job. I had a life. I have conditions. I have criticism, if I were to say that. And as much as this all came out, it just felt like a complete, thick, gooey, snotty spit that has been plastered in your face and you cannot remove it because how stained it is out there. I knew they would do this again and again, and now they just completely do the surprise of another competition, and I was just shocked. And yeah, I really do have the response of that. I really truly. Nobody even questioned or even suspect that once they're done, they're gonna do more. Yes, I know one degree of it that actually is a plus is that it's 2 months instead of a strict 1 month of doing animation of a minute long. And the contest itself, with the standard solemn belief of making a new contest itself. No character should ever talk in this competition. It is more visual, exciting, beautiful music composing, and etc. etc. Which, that sounds great. A great opportunity for me too. Because guess what Odie is? He's a black and white breed. And what does black and white breeds when they first sprout? They have no voice. They can't speak or anything. They're all remember as that. Which should have been such an applaud of joy to me, right? Especially how I have a lot more of animation. Well, this is why I'm gonna post a bit. Technically, fewer digression of eyes, there's gonna be a lot of insensitive or basically deep lore of what happened when I was in mid of the competition of the OC competition and what I had to go through in the process. And this is somewhat digressing about the animation, while also is me entirely. I have a life, I have responsibility, and the animation is my hobby. But yet, press upon to this, I cannot sugar myself anymore. I want to at least publish this time lapse just for the visual sake of proof that I even made the animation and whatnot. And I'm still wanting to post my OST of my own original conceptions that I make and how I make them, just to prove even more that I even made them as an underrated who doesn't want to be popular, who doesn't want to sell this. So what? So, I'll let that know right now. Warning, even though it's already too late, there's going to be a lot of flashing once Odie is going to be drawn. And flashing as in, like, automatic coloring. That's going to be coloring out of his own codes once he's drawn, and then he has to be coloring, you know what I mean. I mean, it's a timeless. The good thing that is that Flipperclip managed to fix up their timeless securities, and I managed to at least post all of smooth and completed timelesses that doesn't glitch out and cut out some of the verses and whatnot. That's a good applaud to it. But yeah, what I'm really gonna say here is what happened in this long while. And yes, this is gonna be somewhat close to an hour. Somewhat like the same thing what happened with the animators versus animator contest thing, except with voice. And I don't have to post in a little 2 hour long thing that has no music because I can't even copyright shit. Oh no, YouTube doesn't want me to at least post it that I like when I give the credit to the person, and yeah, it was actually copyright free. Oh my god, oh no, we cannot let you do that, so let it be in silence, and not let it be you cry and you're sleeping by. Whatever. It's not like anyone would actually see this because who even cares? At least they know one thing. I made it, and I proven it by posting an unedited 2 hour long nothing but time lapse. Yay. Anyway, back to the subject. So, when the contest for the Pride Labs and such, I have no idea what Odie's me to do. I've been hearing about this OC contest thing for at least the prior time. At least for a modus, at least of 1 week before they even announce it. But because they announced it, we all didn't even know what exactly is the result, how we're gonna suspect it, and how it would be completed in a month. Most of my guys that I know, Ikadi, Bertie, Xavier, A artist, Camfra, basically, she didn't actually know anything about this contest. And this Portugal black and white animator, I managed to translate myself to his language in Portuguese just to see if he likes to be part of it, and he's like, I might think about it. But yeah, everyone failed because how very, very despicable that this rush up has been The only ones who had to win it is those who are all in mid-progresses of their own animations, who've been working on it for a while. And that seems like a miracle, right? It sounds like a tremendous thing to me. But if you're in the lost, in the cold, and you wanted to at least live in a life like me, who doesn't use my hobby and try to abuse myself just to expect something related like this, surely enough, not everyone is lucky. Everyone is not all as credited within the result either. I'm surprised I even did. Again, twice, being shown on the whips, and even somehow on the stream. I made a vid about that, of my reaction of realizing that literally Ryan and Kelly saw Odie when they put autoplay. Sure, they have like a very typical time lapse thing where they have to limit themselves for 30 minutes. Not everyone should be seen. Not everything should be graspable and expecting to be seen. But it's so confusing how I managed to be on the tops of being on the roll. I didn't even have the most of the chance of at least making up a whip, and that's why that whip looks a little bit scratched up. It's because I was mostly working on the backgrounds. The backgrounds, however, is very, very explicit, and I managed to succeed it in a very perfectly phenomenon, and not trying to waste it a whole entire dang for them. I managed to capture what I wanted to capture. It is inspired of the watercolor aesthetic template of what the traditional aura of Disney had created long past tense. The areas where even the choir can be heard. References such like Alice in Wonderland, Bambi, Cinderella is somewhat, Snow White, which is the true aesthetic of the initials everyone else come by, Beauty and the Beast, and so much more that I wouldn't just try to reference the entire plot. As you may know me, I took a lot of honorary specs with traditional animators, and how I do not see myself being partour with animating like them, but at least I want to do it, try my best with my own experience and experiment my way of how we can use the traditional access to replicate the traditional aura without disrespecting the guards and had to think highly for yourself to be better than them. No, I want to know how to do it like them. Like Bob Ross shit, you know? But it's really, really, really a scourge in the butt. Especially how I would expect myself to do that. But at the same time, I was doing it in the middle of the contest. Is it a waste of time? Maybe. Does it eat the time? Maybe. But would it ruin me? No, not really. And that's like the short observers of the animations. I made a little bit of my progress videos posted around here of how I did it. And that way I would remind myself of how I managed to do it and do it again. Technically, Disney has a lot of percentages of history, but nobody in YouTube ever brought up the subjects about it and how you could do it by detail digitally. And including animator gods who are still alive together, who are like in the back lore of employment section, who transcends into new technology, they don't even do something like that, which is confusing. Now, I managed to at least got some help with Kat, which is a friend of mine, that I know for a long, long while. Outpictured and managed to be doodled around this corridor. Like one of my posts when I represent everyone's sizes. Yes, she's in there, but she was also named Felicia because she's the sister of Christina. Large subject aside, she actually wanted to help me out with the animations in progression. I was completely digress on the idea of whether or not that I want to work on the hands of with someone else's assistant. I want to be a freestyled alone animator, and I basically am progressing, and I don't really need so much help for it. But if it's a tight schedule and an unnecessary position when you don't even know your ideas of what to do and how you ended up, it's gonna eat you up for more than a week if you had to think about it. Especially how it's an adult life and whatever. But with that, I asked Kat, she was all, oh man, I actually wanted to do something like this. because I know one thing out of her. Remember that I actually represent the idea that their background sequences is watercolor? She paints, bruh. And I think, hold up, if I ask somebody who has more time on the canvas than on device doodling and experimenting like this person is, then maybe I could probably tip her with a notice of referencing and maybe credit her as not just alone. There's a problem to that. She still goes in schooling. And she's now 18. Glad for her. Glad for her. And basically, she's predictably is going to graduate this year. Congratulations on that. She has been overworked by a log run because of how typical the schools have become in Oklahoma. Not their fault, it's just a new CO law, I guess. Back in my own day, I remember that they actually treat me kindly, and there's no secured, brain-rotted freshman that is roaming around the premises, you know? But, yeah. So, I asked her, and she didn't really have much of time, even though she really likes to do it. And it was really depressing, because that means I literally had to scold myself of how I am gonna end it up with the result. So yeah, the posted videos about that is no joke. Literally my temptations of experimenting. And I would leave a very, very strong indication here about when you do backgrounds. When you do yourself backgrounds, it will take your time. It will take a lot of time, and you don't know whether your visuality is going to end up in the right picture like you wanted it. And I do have that. I'm an overthinker, so I suffer it 10 times more, especially how I'm an alone animator. And sorry, I'm basically stuttering a lot than I usually am. Basically, this is like a recent information I just got found out, and I've been waiting for my vid about me talking about my history a while, so I'm a little bit rushing myself when there's no need. But yeah, whatever. Half naked, in my loon, in the hot air, only having a fan flinging on me, rushing for no reason when I have a free man willed, and I'm not even drunk right now. Whatever. Anyway, so yeah, when you're making in the backgrounds, the whole subvertity on your expectations would not land it. And what actually is the worst of it is that you have to go with down perspectives, and not all perspectives is gonna be the same. We all know that when animators done their thing like 3D modeling and then drawing, this visual effects completely separate people would add on the animation even more, and basically the special effects would disrupt everything. Especially how very, very typical the 2D aspect is. Yeah, you're gonna run into that when you're making your backgrounds. They're not all gonna be there, and you cannot just keep yourself on the biggest bubble. So whenever you make background secret recons like that, usually when you do that, don't expect the biggest tree in the wood to be the most detailed and colorized, because you know that's just a single tree who will be covered up in the background with all the other trees. The only ones that actually would get the pride is the ones in the front perspective and not in the background. And basically, the standard front, the front view, and the back view. Nevertheless, you can expect something like that. And also, it could be really pivoting when you're trying to remember how you settle things in that. Throughout my background sequences, you can literally see it that not all hues look exactly the same. And that's problematic, because I would never remember much of how I actually got the first one to look the same, but then somehow the second scene being panned, a completely redrawn background, doesn't add up the same texture and the same sequence. Never more that you can expect that, and with much being persisted by. And the good thing is that I done the background sequences first before drawing audio in the new scene. And that would be the most typical part, because basically Flip-a-Clip, when I inserted my audio, I had to trim the audio of the dialect of Odie down. I know that the entire animation is just nothing but Odie pampering, but there is a lot more detailed and a lot more layer expected of what Odie would say, and basically it was been trimmed down. Trimmed down just only for me to animate faster, because I know I'm running out of time. And basically trimmed down to exactly of at least of a minute and 19 seconds. And also adding in sequences. It was just a confusing plot, because there is not really much of a plot in there. Most of everything is still less experimented. I know I wouldn't be a best animator for that. I had to expect something unknown. And yet, here is the next OC contest that actually says otherwise. No mouth. And yeesh. At least Odie's a bird, so that means he could just chirp or squawk or whatever noises an owl would say. What does the fox say? Nah. What does the owl say? but, but yeah, Odie's pampering could be a lot less than expected of that, because the bigger scenario would he be actually seeing a big possessive, like a literal bigger fish, and how literally that felt like that metaphor. And he would be, this character would be like this. Odie was just pampering out, he was scratching on the tree, representing his inner rage, pulling out, because he doesn't want to violate everyone else around him or etc. That sounds familiar in that tight switch. Yeah, well, I would not speak about that. But, in this cutout sequence, a bigger, powerful, and a lot more taller possessive would linger over the tree that Odie was on. And basically, it was a running gag bit where I didn't expect him to go through a fight sequence, but it's supposed to represent of how powerful Odie actually is without even realizing it. Even though he has the lowest FL, fantasy lyrics, a thing where animations do have that acts more than a realistic can, basically, he has resources, like the little hatchet he has to carry around, referenced from one of the first animations, which he actually has in real life. And I'll post a picture on that to my community post to prove that. And basically, this thing can cut. And Rag's axe, he also has it too. You can get it on Temu in a cheaper price, and guess what? It's a literal fucking knife. It can cut through a can, it can absolutely cut mine. As long as you whetstone it, it will just be sharpened, and you can literally have a miniature hatchet that can only be wielded by a creation. This miniature hatchet, and also miniature hoe, can be a very substantial plotting and how it represents the creation bodies and how it actually has lore to them. And I'm really proud of that. And I wanted to oppose it in the animation. He will use it to throw it against the possessive and then comedically collapse, and Odie would not glance on the idea of what he did, because he's been taught by Rag. He is really experienced because how he sees Rag. Rag actually do harm himself, and that way Odie would see things like bloody and whatnot. But then again, he sees this as normal because, one, he's an owl. Owls do normally, in fact, kill even the biggest entities, and they're also known as silent flyers. Have you seen the murderous, the unforgivable attentions that both animated and realistic owls can do to a selfless, defenseless predator? Please. I don't think you'll know any until you search up the facts. They are miracle birds for a reason. They have representations throughout history. They are known as the bird of wisdom when really they're just misunderstood. Or birds of which fortunes incredibly misdeed. If you disrespect the owl, it will just like disrespecting one bird of a crow or anything that in the matter, and they will all hunt you down. A murder, if we would say. Owls can do that in the same way, it's just not in crowds. You don't need to worry about crowds if there's one haunting you forever. Kind of like that one owl that would be represented like an elephant that's hunting this old woman throughout the entire half of the content. I don't think you know what I'm talking about, do you? Anyway. But yeah, Odie is instantly powerful, and it was supposed to end that sequence animation right there, where this supposed running gag will be more like a little tiny cry that will be just ignored. And technically, that's the proven definition of struggle and basically sad result. Sure, I am satisfied with the results of the background sequences. The animation smoothly is represented on Odie and how his body is worked and everything like that. One thing to know, I respected not only the idea of how Odie was animated by how he is reacting, but the fact that I try to understand more of how he really can speak. And even though lip syncing isn't really the prerogative way of saying it, but more like beak syncing or whatever, it's really hard because he cannot use his tongue like normally what we can, or produce anything that'll be like sha or la or anything of least relying on it, or even using teeth like p or ta or ta. You cannot use the teeth. So how is Odie able to talk or communicate? And the only way you can actually perceive it is just that you basically rely on the frames and how you can cheat it by using Odie's mouth in a way that you just have to see it like how you manipulate with your hand that does the talk itself. It never was born to have a tongue, and yet within the use of sensibility, the beak would bend, the beak would emote, and even though he has emotions that which is immunity barely, in the future come, I bet one day he's gonna have a way like how he would with all animated dogs, where they gain teeth on their own wills and such. Birds do have their own teeth, but yeah, Odie lacks any, and that makes him, well, anti-alien in most of way, because birds do have their own way of teething. You just barely see it. It's really, really microscopic. What's even more than that nobody ever notices until I had to bring it up is that I did a little sneak animating that nobody ever realized. Have you ever seen Odie bend knees? Odie can't bend his knees. Owls bend their knees all the time. They rely on that whenever they use their talons. Odie can't even bend them. And when you see him bang on the tree, it's evident you never see him trying to propel to a streak because he cannot bend them. He used the tips of his own little feet, whatever they are. They're not claws, but whatever they are, he can't grab things with them. Basically, it's because his creation body was relied on that. And how he is in fully intimidated where he can walk, he can at least jump, but he has to use his upper half to jump and use his wings to propel even higher. So technically, he's not even jumping at all. He can't bend his knees for that. And I don't want to say it because I want to make it people have to actually fucking realize it. But then again, I'm another. How can anyone learn that? Well, the biggest surprise is me literally admitting, yeah, that actually is intentional. And it will be a lot more easier. Now, if you would think about having a walk cycle and then you see Odie, it's just him literally waddling. And you can never see him walking in a straight line. Like, he will wobble on there. He will fail DOY training. He will fail it. Even though he's not drunk, he will fail it. He's like a toddler. Except toddlers can bend their legs, it's just they don't know how. Odie could have known, but he never has a knee joint to build that. And it wouldn't matter. It's not like he would need leg day anyway. Literally leg day. One day, if he's gonna grow up, he's probably gonna be all muscle ball on top, but because he can't bend his knees to run with anything, it's just gonna be two little toothpicks just wiggling right there. Like some very cursed joint third leg or whatnot. He's a bird, he doesn't have one. What was I saying? But yeah, that's one thing about knowing about anime Odie. And basically, anime him, like I would know it, he's way simplistic. He's just only black and white. And a tint of gray, with only for using the legs and the beak. And it's a good thing of that. And whenever he needs that little tiny feather pill so that way you know he's a bird of what kind, then yeah, he's gonna enjoy on that. I try to do like a lot of new fancy movements so that way it won't be repetitive. And he never really sits still unless it's some kind of self-questioning sequence. You never really see Odie to stand still on himself. I don't want it to make him feel emotionless because of like two things. One, he's a kid. He's gonna be moving around a lot. And two, I don't want it to make the scene really boring whenever he talks. I want him to feel exaggerated. I want him to feel emotional. It's suspended. And I give him that in a very good way. Now, do I use references of inspiration of character modelization just to inspire myself on Odie? Actually, no. I only use the background sequences as references and listening to choir music to compose something of the mutiny, of sympathy, and using the winds and the strings that can play somewhat like a very orchestrated and very deep aura sound that represents dark ages and shit. And I just trim it down a little bit of the villain, that way you can hear it, but at the same time not want to erupt it on Odie. I was a little bit worried on that when I'm gonna post it on YouTube, and basically people will have their own way of how they would turn up the volume on. I might be worried if maybe Odie might be a little bit too loud on them, but when I listened through it, it actually was perfectly clear and perfectly with bound, and it was actually all good. And as for the music, there was like an accidental perfect scenery on it. I managed to get a record of my reaction of being all happy and excited about it. Which is the beautiful curse about it. It's like, it's known as the perfect time and harmony. And that I be very consensual over that. And when I made that piece, it was all handcrafted down by Maestro, where you can get simplified sounds that represents an instrument and put it on notes. Yes, you had to educate yourself of how do you actually use like a Maestro magazine that those choir people play. Yes, those are the same matters except digitally. Hell, you can actually search it up on the Bible's singer verses, copy it, but with different instruments. And that way you get a cooler version of I Fly Away. Which is really unique in that one. And as for the choir aesthetic, there is no choir aesthetic in here where I can use vocalo, and that way it will actually make me sound like I have multiple people inside my soul. No, I sadly have no vocalization in the background music. It is just a fully composed, a minute long music conversed in which it was just subjectified by unities of synth, such as violin, and then you got the recorder. I can't remember what the instrument says, but whatever. The sympathy that it was actually played had, I have like a trouble time of what exactly I can give it as an original name, because I don't normally try to dissect of what the names is gonna be. But let me see, I'm searching it right now. I definitely know it has canopy. Sunbeams through the canopy is what I actually want to call it. Representing about the idea that audio is in a literal existential crisis this entire time. The poor boy needed to get a breather because he's like screaming his ass off in the tree where he abuses the shit out of it because he cannot figure out what exactly he could satisfy, and basically I don't blame him. And it's just most of that devastating if I had to say so myself, but meh. We can't really blame the guy for so long because he's literally on a trial with a suspect, Rag, his own adopted father, over counts of possessive murders, and how he would slit through a possessive in a hole like a bullet with using his scythe for that. Promise me, I want to emanate that so badly, but until the next time, I'm still in a very good deeds of it. I got a lot of things in my own head that I want to create, but yeah. But anyway, now I get you the subject where it was like in the middle of animating. I have a life in crisis, a life in given. And one of the things of these matters is that I went through criticals. You see, this is outside the bounds of animation, and that I would be in subtraction of my animation because some bad things happened to me. But I will give you a note, I'm still okay, and same goes with my car. Oh, I told you that something is gonna be nothing with animation, it's something about cars. Yes, so I was in the middle of door dashing, and I was meaning to finish off my last shift around passing 11, or such that's close to 11. When I was doing that, I turned lane, and nobody was around me. It was in the middle of the dark, and it was a highway, so I was going right, and what happened there is that once I turned right, I went on to the jump start to turn left onto this street that's not connected to the highway, basically a down road. And as I was yielded to see if I have nothing that's going around in front of me, I just stared there for a little couple of seconds. And just when I was up there, barely would be moving like a literal mile, not fully stopped or whatnot, a motorcyclist who just got his motorcycle hit me on the back rear end on my passenger side. And yeah, it's the same area where it has my dent that is like in an accident state when I also would have been in a very awkward situation on DoorDash, but at least I don't worry about the dent anymore. And yeah, a lot of situation happened there where I got through shock. I look at the person seeing he's okay. He acted like he fractured his wrist when really it was just his arm that was like a little bit conjointed. That wasn't so bad, like a sprain. And he's mostly okay. He went through an ambulance flag. Pray for his soul for that. I hope he has insurance. And basically I talked to the police officers on my perspective. I'm not harmed. And basically I was in an existential crisis. Unfortunately, this whole thing could have been a subside, and this is known as not my fault, as I was proven that from another witness who came to the scene just for helping out the guy. I'm not gonna give you his name since I know his name from the receipt and his phone number and where he lives. He actually did not live far away from me. He's actually really nearby, like a literal 30-minute nearby. I'm not joking with you. And by that with it, unfortunately my insurance rather wants to say fuck you on both of us. Like, nobody gets to be known as guilty, nobody gets the rights of what needs to be fixed. The good thing is his motorcycle is actually okay. And while my car, yeah, I'll also give you a post of what my car looks like before and then after, since I did in fact have an after like picture and then I have a before picture because of that dent that was near the before on the same side. So I was really lucky on myself. I like taking selfies with cars, my car in particular. But yeah, it was like a very devastating moment. The insurance wants to make me pay more than what I should have. I have no legal writing of this since this is my first time having an accident that's not even my fault. And my insurance doesn't want to care about my half or his half. I did not contact him in the slightest because he's at the hospital, man. He went to the hospital to see if he was gonna be okay, and I'm glad he is. And turns out because he gained his motorcycle, that means he also just gained his insurance, so he has no real critical history. I do. I have like a year and a couple of months worth of history on my car that is first owned. It's actually the rental owned, so that means it was owned before by somebody else named Lisa, and basically she accidentally left a lot of her stuff in her own car that became mine, and so I technically have the rights on those now. I have a free Bluetooth thing that you can put in the adapter that connects to my phone. So I got a free thingy on that. It works, and it's awesome. And somehow, she's a vapor because she loves her faith in it, and I don't feel so. But yeah, in any means necessary. Yeah, the insurance really screwed my anxiety was horrific, and it's not really fun. It really deprived me down about my animation because my overthinking will override my own thoughts of what to do for Odin. But at least I satisfied my weights out, and it turns out I got a lot of alliances that helped me out on my way because they know what circumstance would happen when the insurance screwed up. And this is more like a soul of the awareness about how insurances would trick you in the mind. I technically gone through insurance of Progressive, but because of the people who led agencies and such shit, the agencies do not know what would actually happen of what the discussion planning of the actual people who worked in offices at Progressive. Basically, just visualize this like this. They are nothing but big and snobby females that are just very hunk over on the TV, just eating off the food of your money, and basically getting more. And that they have a message saying, hey, this person got the wreck and they're not their fault. No, I'm not gonna give them my money. So what? Why? Why can you not meet them that? Their car is like damaged. No, I don't feel again. But are you not gonna believe what they say? They have proven evidence. Too bad. I have the rights. Lord have noted. Shouldn't have let the lie that they shouldn't let me to speak. But yeah, it's really bad and it's really unfair. But because I got a new insurance with very good people that I could just pay in person, I have more of a legal way of what happens when some same accident would happen to me. Another thing on the soft side note is that when things happen like that, I want to give you a brief second of this moment. Kat and everyone else I know of wants to ride a motorcycle. Why? That the reason why they wanted a motorcycle is because one, it's cool, and two, you can drive around in it and you don't do the same right away like an actual mobile. All the mobiles have the same law restriction, but motorcycles can't. So they can speed around you and do donuts on you and be sickle to you, and yet treat them like shit. Treat everyone like shit, and yet the law cannot shoot you down for that. I'm not shitting with you. I can't believe that in my Okie land, these motorcyclists think they own the law because of these different restrictions. And I was afraid of motorcycles ever since I bought the car because how dangerous they really are. They just speed around you illegally without having the permissions or whatnot. You will never know that you would just get hit. And how he hit me is because it's in the middle of the dark, and because he's speeding a little much, he did not realize that I was right there. And it was a turning point too, on the uphill. So when I was at the yield, he somehow jumped on to the left lane because it's a 2-lane procedure. And because he was a little bit too close on me, oh yeah, it sounded like it hurt. And as for the damage, it looks like it's repairable. It's just most of my entire back lane is completely popped off, like it's shattered. And the only thing I need to do is just tape it and I'm done. But yeah, devastations aside, I'm okay, the guy is okay, and Odie's okay. Because I managed to succeed in animation, and that was like in the middle of the monthly of that April. So, gracious me on God that did not become a SilverCons. And leaving on a note, don't get a motorcycle. You will sound like an asshole. I gotta admit to you, it would make you into an asshole because you think you own the law. If you own a motorcycle, that means you think you know your own right of way. You do not. You will be as illegal as what those crime guys gotta do. And it could have been worse. It really could have been worse. But yeah, what am I gonna say? Oh yeah, so the relapse animation is gonna be ending, and basically, it's like a literal hour long. I don't know if anyone would actually come to this close in the ending right here, but this is like my time lapse. I will post the OST of Sunbeams Through the Canopy, and probably more of my own composts that I made, including the ones about the Angel of Morning ones. And those will be freaky, I gotta tell you that, and they actually have very big deep lore, which I will give you a lore summary on my own half on that. Yes, I have a lot of big fucking lore that nobody even knows until then it's too late. Ugh. Yeah, I got a lot on my back. It ain't pretty. But, yeah. Uh, but anyway, oh, the new competition, I don't know if I'm ready for it, but who knows? And who knows that I will still gain a lot of money. Also, I'm in a debt of 450 given one of my family members now, so I cannot get my own money. I only had to spend a lot for gas, and that's it. That means I cannot be a plant addict. And also working on the boat. Rag is back up working the boat again. Good for him.